absolutely pathetic. Yes, I'm talking to you. I'm talking to every single one of you that put in your predictions last weekend, except 2 of you. Your score was rubbish. Your predictions were pathetic. I include myself in that, by the way. Some of you lot got nothing. 0. No points whatsoever. Forget correct score. You didn't even get a correct outcome, some of you. That was by far the worst predictions we've had on this channel. But it didn't help because the bottom 6 of the Premier League did not get beat last weekend. We do have a winner. I was getting a little bit worried, I'll confess, when I go through the predictions. If you don't have at least 10 points, I just move on to the next one. Because usually there's 6, 7, 8 people with at least 10 marks. I got to the end and there was no one. Then there was 2 right at the end, but we did have an overall winner, which was Hlim. Well done, Hlim. You were the winner of the prediction competition last weekend. He correctly predicted Manchester United to beat Manchester City. He had Chelsea to beat Brentford. He had Leeds United to beat Fulham. He had Sunderland to beat Crystal Palace. So 4 outcomes correct so far out of 5. Then he had it bang on as he predicted West Ham United to beat Spurs, giving him 7 points. He had the draw at the City Ground, putting him on 8 points. He had the 0-0 between Wolves and Newcastle United popping up to 11 points. And he also correctly had Brighton Bournemouth finishing in a draw on Monday night. Hlim, thank you very much for saving everyone from embarrassment. That's your prize, a shout out from a random Scotsman chatting nonsense on YouTube. And I just want to say a massive thank you to Andrew for the £2 super chat and donation last week, who said, "You're a good lad from a Forest Red Dog. Keep it coming, Gio." Welcome to the Tartan Gio YouTube channel. This is my Premier League preview and prediction show where we go across the 10 fixtures. I'll give you my thoughts on the game and my prediction as well. And I'm pretty crap at it. So don't let that put you off. Get involved in the comments below, and the weekend gets underway at the London Stadium as my team, West Ham United, host Sunderland. We finally won a game of football. We beat QPR in the FA Cup, and then we beat Spurs last week as well. So I've been in a good mood all week. It's amazing what football can do for you, good and bad. When it's miserable, it gets you down. But when it's good, you get a high that you just can't really get from anywhere else in life sometimes. Maybe that's just me and I'm a bit sad, but I don't think it's me. I feel quite confident you're watching this, you love football, so you're going to be the same. 5 points behind Nottingham Forest going into this one, so it's a big game for Nuno Espirito Santo and West Ham United. The London Stadium hasn't been a great place for us, just 5 wins at the London Stadium in 2025. However, 2 of those wins did come under Nuno, and it's the last time and the only time this season we've gone back-to-back wins when we beat Burnley and Newcastle United. So we're aiming to go back-to-back wins for the second time in the Premier League as we host Sunderland, who finally won last weekend after 5 without a win, beating Crystal Palace. However, it's still no win in 6 aways for Sunderland, drawing 3 and losing 3. And a Sunderland fan told me earlier they're wearing their 3rd kit this weekend, and they've not scored a goal wearing their 3rd kit. I did reassure him that Sunderland could play naked and they'd still score at the weekend. This is a difficult one. In a way, there's an advantage going first. So if you get a good result, it puts the pressure on the others. But obviously, if you get a bad result, it takes the pressure off the other ones as well. If we were to lose, it means that Nottingham Forest and Leeds, they've got an opportunity to really pull away from West Ham. But if they lose, it's not the end of the world because we've already lost. So it's a difficult... I don't like going first. I'm going to say West Ham United 1, Sunderland 1. We've improved in recent weeks. We've finally got a win on the board. But Sunderland, difficult team to play, but I'm pleased it's at home rather than away. If it was at the Stadium of Light, I'd be predicting a loss, but it's not. So I'm going to go 1-1. Burnley hosting Spurs. Burnley without a win in 13 now, drawn 4, losing 9. However, those 4 draws have come in their last 6 games. So there's been an improvement for Burnley. They've just stopped losing games, but they're still not winning fixtures at the minute. Hosting Spurs, who won in the Champions League during the week against Dortmund, but it's 4 without a win in the Premier League. Now, I had this belief that Spurs were one of the better teams away from home in the Premier League, and they are statistically in that league table. But when I had a look, they've only won 1 of the last 8 in all competitions away from home. The pressure is well and truly on Thomas Frank. Another injury blow for Spurs. Bergvall this time is being ruled out. And I think this is a more difficult game than Spurs would perhaps like. And I think this is a game that Burnley will be licking their lips at a little bit. I think they're down. I don't think there's much Burnley can do in order to stay up. But this is not an unwinnable fixture for Burnley, but it's also a must-win for Spurs. I think a draw wouldn't satisfy either of them here. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen. I'm going to say Burnley 2, Spurs 2, because look, I'm not even being biased. I do my best to not be biased on this channel. And for every team in the Premier League, bar Spurs and possibly Man United, I think I managed to not be biased. There's some maybe I'm too positive about, like probably Sunderland's probably one of them. I'm maybe guilty of being a little bit lenient on at times. And Aston Villa as well. I try not to be. So this isn't even bias. Spurs are just crap. Thomas Frank at Spurs is crap. Burnley 2, Spurs 2. Fulham host Brighton. The Leeds defeat ended a run of 6 without a defeat for the Cottagers. And they've won 2 and drawn 1 in the last 3 at home. However, coming up against the Brighton side, just 1 win in 9. But they have drawn 5 of those games. It's 4 away games now for Brighton without a win. But some of those fixtures have been quite difficult. Majority of those fixtures coming in against teams at the top end of the Premier League. But Fulham have got a really good record against Brighton. One of those random things I notice when I'm just having a look at the form and the previous results of teams. And you can see the head-to-head there as well. And I think they've won 4 of the last 5 home games against Brighton. And the 5th game, I think, was a draw. So Fulham don't mind hosting Brighton. I've not seen Fulham play for a couple of weeks now, but I have seen Brighton. And they were not great in the first half against Bournemouth. It was all Brighton in the second half against Bournemouth. But I do think the tactics of Bournemouth certainly helped. And the lack of bench, whereas Brighton had a really impressive bench on Monday night. And that was enough to sort of get them the equaliser. I'm going to go with the home win on this one, though. I'm going to say Fulham 2, Brighton 1. Manchester City hosting Wolves at the Etihad. It's now 4 without a win in the Premier League and Champions League. They got 4 without a win in the Premier League for Manchester City, and they got beat in the Champions League during the week. Pep Guardiola said something like it's all going wrong. He looks like a manager that is stressed at the minute. And to be fair, he should be a manager that looks stressed. He should be stressed because the gap between them and Arsenal is just opening up little by little every single weekend. And that Oasis pun was intentional. Thank you very much. But they are unbeaten in 30 games when they come up against a side that's 20th in the Premier League, winning 24 and drawing 6. Plus, their home record in that spell, they've scored 36 goals and they've not conceded one. So it's been a while since the team 20th in the league facing Man City not only have won, have scored at the Etihad. But coming up against the Wolves team, unbeaten in 5 in all competitions. And now that run they were on where they just couldn't get anything, they had 3 points in the Premier League. It's in the distance now a little bit. The Rob Edwards helm is starting to overshadow Pereira. It's feeling a little bit positive. And I think Wolves, do you know when teams get officially relegated then you think, whoa, they might be a little bit dangerous now, pressure's off. I think that's where Wolves are. Obviously, officially, they're not down. But I think the pressure's, I feel like it's gone. I think the pressure's evaporated. I think everyone's just gone, yeah, Wolves are getting relegated. Oh, they've sacked Pereira now. The story of Wolves, I think, is just quieting down a little bit, and I think that's really helping them. And I actually think they're a dangerous team to play at the minute because they've got nothing to lose. They might as well go for it. If Wolves lose 1-0, 2-0, 4-0, what's the difference? There isn't one. They don't need to protect goal difference. They might as well just try and make it a bloody game. And I think it will be at Man City. I'm going to say City 3, Wolves 2. Moving on to the 5:30 game on Saturdays. Bournemouth hosting Liverpool. Just 1 win in 13 now for the Cherries. However, they've only lost 2 of the last 12 at home, winning 6 of those games. Down to bare bones Bournemouth. They had, I think, 3 senior players on the bench on Monday. Needed all 3. However, they have made some purchases this week, spending some of that Semenyo money in the January transfer window. Coming up against the Liverpool team, unbeaten in 13 all competitions, winning 7 and drawn 6. But they have drawn There are 4 Premier League games of 2026 so far, and there's only ever been 2 teams to draw their first 5 league games in the top flight of a calendar year in English football. So they could equal history at the minute, Liverpool, should they draw this game. I still don't trust Liverpool. Salah's back now. They won 3-0 during the week. Clinical, I believe, is what the performance was described as from the Reds. But I think I heard Aaron Slot say something like in this run they're on, they've only been behind in 54 minutes in the 13 games or something. That's impressive. That's a really, really good number as well. But in the 13 unbeaten, there's a big difference when you look at Arsenal, they've gone 12 unbeaten, Arsenal, but they're winning majority of those games. Liverpool are 13 unbeaten, but they've still failed to win 6 of the 13 as well. So I just don't find them trustworthy enough yet. As for Bournemouth, need to be careful. Just need to get a couple of points on the board so they don't have to look over their shoulder a little bit. Because if this weekend West Ham won, Leeds won, Forest won, and they got beat, it starts to get a little bit tight. There's potential this weekend. It feels like it might be the last chance saloon to just drag a couple of outsiders down into that relegation battle, or certainly on the edge of a relegation battle. I'm going to say Bournemouth 2, Liverpool 2. On to Sunday's games. Brentford hosting Nottingham Forest. At the time of recording, it is Thursday, so I don't know what Nottingham Forest's game against Braga was, and also Aston Villa taking on Fenerbahce as well. So they've still got a game to play. But Brentford still only Manchester City have left the GTEC Community Stadium this season with a win. Getting beat by Chelsea at the weekend meant that was 6 without. They'd gone 6 without defeat before that loss at Stamford Bridge. That's Brentford team in good form, looking good at the minute. Thiago's in good form, Shadow's in good form. Didn't see their game against Chelsea, obviously, but back to the GTEC Community Stadium where they'll be feeling confident. Coming up against the Nottingham Forest team who've got a Thursday night game before this one. And also Nottingham Forest, 1 win in 7 prior to the game against Braga this evening in all competitions. Pressure is on Nottingham Forest, but they got a good draw against Arsenal last week. However, I think the first half in particular, I watched the game, it was just Forest defending. Second half, they came out a little bit more towards the end of the first half as well, I should say. Forest came out a little bit and tried to get something against Arsenal. But it was very much part of the bus. But it worked. A 0-0 against Arsenal was an absolute fantastic result. And I just hope from a West Ham perspective, we can win and put a bit of pressure on Forest going to Brentford. Difficult game to call, one of the harder fixtures to call this weekend, I think. But I'm going to go Brentford 2, Nottingham Forest 1. And no, it's not me being biased. It's not, Gio's just going to spell out his dream scenario. Because if it was, I'd be putting West Ham to win. Crystal Palace host Chelsea, 7 without a win in the Premier League for Crystal Palace now. Only Burnley have a worse streak. It's 10 without a win in all competitions for the Eagles. Plus, we've had that interview from Oliver Glasner last week. And in the meantime, Mateta's told them he wishes to leave. So it's got worse. It's getting worse at Crystal Palace. Just when you thought they were at rock bottom, oh no, there's another twist here, which is Mateta is looking at the exit door gaze, now joined Manchester City as well. Chelsea won 3 of their 4 under Liam Senior after that win in the Champions League as well. But they've only got 3 points in 5 games away from home. Only Wolves and Burnley have less points away from home in the last 5 games than what Chelsea do. So a little bit of pressure there for Chelsea. They want to get Champions League football. It could be a good fixture for them going away to Crystal Palace. It just feels, everything feels wrong at Palace at the minute. I think they're the team, one of the teams that you want to be playing this weekend. It feels like the right time to strike. And whilst the noise came out of Selhurst Park that Glasner and the board had talks and decided to remain until the end of the season, I ain't buying it. I'm not buying it at all. But the fact that they've had to have talks, there was that interview, it would suggest that all is not well. I say all is, would suggest, it's not suggesting. Glasner's told us all is not well. Good time to play Palace. But Chelsea, I don't know. I'm just not feeling it. I'm going to say Crystal Palace 0, Chelsea 0. Newcastle United host Aston Villa. Might be the better game to watch at 2 p.m. on Sunday. That's the game I'm possibly going to tune into. 4 wins in 7 for Newcastle. Just one defeat. That doesn't... What have I got here? No, sorry, that's Aston Villa. Aston Villa, one loss for Villa, winning 2, drawing 1 in the last 5. I'm getting this all wrong. Let me start this again. What have I wrote here? 1 loss against Villa. That can't be right. Anyway, let me start this again. I'm not editing it. I don't have time. Newcastle hosting Aston Villa at St James's Park at 2 p.m. on Sunday. This is maybe the game I'm going to tune into. It's 4 wins in 7 for Newcastle. And it's 2 wins, 1 draw and 2 defeats in the last 5 for Aston Villa before the game against Fenerbahce. Of course, the head-to-head between these two are a little bit split. But I'm looking forward to this one. There's pressure on Eddie Howe, pressure on Newcastle to get Champions League football. I watched the game against PSV. It was a walk in the park, really. It was a very professional performance from Newcastle. PSV weren't very good, but the bad news for Newcastle is Bruno going off injured. They've got to hope that he's okay for this one because he can make a big difference. One of the best players in the league, in my opinion. Coming up against the Villa team who obviously got beat by Everton last weekend, and that was a disappointing performance and a disappointing result for Villa. But they can put it right pretty quickly because I always think if, say, Villa wins this game, you can look at it that if they'd beaten Everton and got beat by Newcastle, I don't think anyone would be too bothered or surprised by that. Villa are in this weird thing in the league now. What they're doing, are they in the title race? Probably not. They're probably not good enough to win the title, but they're definitely good enough to qualify for the Champions League. And I think that's where they are. They're going to try and maybe even finish second in the Premier League, and that would be a tremendous achievement. And this is a good test for both of these. I think this is a brilliant game to see where Newcastle are. Are you good enough to go get Champions League? But it's also a good game for a barometer of Villa. Can you get the win? Head-to-head has been quite even between these two. But I think Villa are going to sneak it. I'm going to say Newcastle United 1, Aston Villa 2. Arsenal host Manchester United. Arsenal unbeaten in 12. Only Liverpool and Manchester City have left Emirates with something this season, and it wasn't a win. Unbeaten at home still. Coming up against Man United team. Just 1 defeat in 8 away. So even though Amarim got sacked, Man U's sort of league table form, it wasn't as bad as you might have thought. They weren't that far away from the top 4. Their form away from home isn't that bad either. They blew Man City away last week. I was very, very impressed by Michael Carrick's influence on the team already, but this is just a different challenge altogether. Although Arsenal and City feel like the big hitters in the Premier League this season, and they've just played one of them off the park, I think there's a big difference between Arsenal and Man City this season. I think Arsenal will just be too much for Manchester United, but I think you can just, if they get something, fantastic, bonus. If not, put it down to a bad day at the office, draw a line under it, move on to the more winnable fixtures. But an interesting test this for Arsenal because they'll know what Man City's done the day before as well. But even if Man City won, this fixture has a lot of weight to it because of the between the two clubs over the years. Not so much now, but over the years, obviously with Fergie and Wenger as well. So I think there's a bit of pressure on Arsenal in terms of the noise around the fixture. So it'll be an interesting test. I think they'll be okay. I'm going to say Arsenal 2, Manchester United 0. And lastly, on Monday night, we've got Everton hosting Leeds United. 2 wins in 8 for Everton. But they did beat Aston Villa last time round. No wins in 4 at home. And it doesn't matter how you... Sometimes the form table and stuff, you can slice it and dice it how you want to. Sometimes, a team will have... Sunderland was the perfect example, weren't they? Last weekend, on this show last week, so before they beat Crystal Palace, what was it? I think I've got it here, actually, with Sunderland. I've still got my notes. Let me flip back to Sunderland, where they had no win in 5 or 1 loss in 7. So both stats were true, just depending on how you wanted to cut it up. There's no cutting up with Everton's home form. No wins in 4. They've won 2 in 8, 3 in 11. So it doesn't really matter how far back you go. It's not a good look in terms of their home form. Coming up against Leeds United team, 1 loss in 10 in all competitions. They're doing good. They're doing good. The only defeat in their last 10 coming away to Newcastle United, that last-minute goal for Harvey Barnes as well. They're a team that's bloody hard to beat, and you just don't know what you're going to get with Everton. winning away to Villa was incredible. That is an insane result for Everton, especially when you look at how many players they had out as well. Obviously, a couple of players back now, like Brantwaite's, I think, is in training, and Dye's back for an African Cup of Nations, so that'll help them. But Grealish is out for a few weeks now. I think Dewsbury Hall isn't too far away either. So Moyes needs his players back because they can still go get European football. European football is a very realistic target, in my opinion, for Everton this season. This will be a good test. But if Leeds United manage to win, that'll put them just 4 points behind Everton going into the next set of fixtures, which would be brilliant for Daniel Farke's side. I'm going to go down in the middle with my favourite scoreline. It's not my favourite scoreline, it's the one I predict the most probably on here, as pointed out by one of you guys once, and I can't get it out of my head now. How many have I got? It's only my second one of the show, to be fair, the other one being West Ham. I'm going to say Everton 1, Leeds United 1. Thank you very much for joining me. Please get involved in the comments below. The list of fixtures is in the description and the pinned comments. Just copy, paste, give me your predictions, and hopefully we can all do a little bit better with our predictions this weekend, right? If you've enjoyed the show, please do drop a like on it by clicking the thumbs up button. Sky Tartan Geo. Thank you very much for keeping me company, and I'll catch you in a bit.